Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan. Welcome to another collection stream. Tonight I'm going to start the beginning of a long gauntlet. It's my entire comic book collection. I've got boxes and boxes of comics I've been collecting since I was 7 or 8 years old, and I've never gone through all of them. Obviously, over the years, I've shown you guys stuff here and there. I've reviewed a lot of things out of my personal collection, but I've never gone A to Z and shown you everything, and I've threatened to do it several times. And a couple years ago, I was even kicking around going through the whole thing in a big 24-hour stream, and I decided that that would just be insane, and I probably wouldn't even finish it all, honestly, because I tend to, talk a while about each thing I pull up, and I can't imagine that would work out where I wouldn't just fall over at some point. So, as you might be able to tell, the lighting is a little bit different tonight. I wanted to set this up so that I could show you guys covers and not have too much glare on the Mylar bags. I say A to Z. I've got a few things here and there that are out of order right now. After this first box, I might try to file a little bit more, but more or less, I've got everything in a decent order. There's a couple collections that I have kind of off to the side, like the Tick books are all together, the Power Rangers books are all together, and I also have a few racks of things, of issues that are currently set up that I would have to take all those down and either show you separately or put back in the boxes. But anyway, so I'm going to try to get through the whole first box tonight. If that doesn't work out, I'll do, the other half of it in another stream, and I'm going to sprinkle other things in between these. So I might do a few of these in a row, or I might go ahead and jump to another collection. I've been playing this by ear week to week, trying to do these weekly, and this is already our fourth. I'm getting pretty close to every week with these, but I've got other figure collections, I've got Power Rangers, I've got Star Trek. That by itself is going to be several streams. So I'm going to, like I said, kind of sprinkle these in, or those in to these. So this will become kind of the big primary thing because there's just so much of it. It's probably, I haven't even counted recently, it's probably 26, 28 boxes. I have somewhere around 10,000 comics, and I have sold some things, most notably my Spawn collection. You're not going to see hardly any Spawn in this. I used to own nearly everything, at least several years ago. Going back, I say several years, it's been almost a decade now. I think I sold that collection in 2016, beginning of 17, I think 16, so a couple years after Spawn year. And I still regret it a little bit. There's a part of me that wishes I kept all that stuff. So oddly, even though I'm somewhat known for Spawn Year and being the Spawn guy, and I showed all those singles in that series, you're not going to see any Spawn in this. And so that was, several hundred issues, and then I have subsequently kind of replaced that with other stuff. So my number is back around 10,000. I would be even quite a bit higher if I had kept up with current over the last few years, but I really stalled out, and my spending dollars for hobbies and collections and stuff over the last few years have gone a lot more to tabletop gaming with the Power Rangers miniatures game, Heroes of the Grid, which I've talked about a lot, and sometime in this series I will also show you guys all that stuff, hopefully after I've gotten more of the figures painted. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into this box, and I'm kind of lying about that a little bit. I actually want to start with some other things that I set off to the side, some kind of nicer, some of these are kind of key issues, some of these are signed things, and these are not all of the, more valuable or, nicer, like Silver Age, older stuff, or, signed and key things that I have. This is just stuff that I happen to have put together a cool notebook with, and there used to be more stuff in this notebook, but I've refiled it. So anyway, I wanted to start with this stuff so I didn't forget about it, because these things, I haven't gone back and filed, and I probably won't. I'll probably beef that notebook up again and turn it into just a cool thing to show people when they come over. Because the problem with trying to show things people comics is it's impossible to display all of them, obviously. And even it's even difficult to put very many of them up anywhere where people can take a look at them without risking, damaging them in some way. Like, you don't really want to hang comics on the walls unless you can frame them all. I put them all in, cool hard plastic comic frames. That gets really expensive. And so when people come over, and even people that are into comics will see your boxes and go, wow, you sure have a lot of comics. And unless they start thumbing through everything, they're never going to know what you have. And so it can be a little bit frustrating trying to show people things. So I like to put together these notebooks and just hand them to them and be like, here's a sampling of the cool stuff that I have. Hi, Jareth Gearhart. Hi, Adam March. Good to see you guys. I know I'm starting really late tonight. Again, I'm trying to do these on Sundays or Mondays, and I was doing things with my family up until just half an hour ago. So I got to sneak it in. So hopefully some of you guys that weren't able to make it can look at this after the fact. But anyway, thanks for being here if you are watching live, and thanks for watching later if you're doing that as well. Adam March says, I think you had a nice looking display in the old Batcave. Obviously, it was only a fraction of the collection, but it looked nice. Yeah, I appreciate that. But yes, as you say, it was just a fraction. And I think he's referring to a like kind of slot wall type bookshelf that I had. It was kind of a magazine shelf where I was able to display some of my comics, and that thing was bulky and heavy and was almost impossible to get down the staircase back at the old house. In fact, Jeff helped me out with that, and we nearly killed ourselves trying to get that down that staircase. So we actually ended up hacking that up and destroying it and throwing it away before we moved over to this place, because we knew there was no way we were getting it out of that basement. So it might be cool down the road to get something kind of like that again. Like I said, I've got 4 kind of retail type comic racks that I have some things on right now, but it's hard to read much besides the titles on those. So anyway, I'm always trying to come up with cool ways to display comics, kicking stuff around. Maybe I'll come up with a nicer way to show off more of it. But even then, I mean, if you can show off 100 or 200 issues, you're doing really, really well. And that's difficult to do. Even down here with all the space that I have, it's just like, how do you do it in like an economical kind of way that makes any sense? One thing I thought might be kind of fun, and this will probably slow it down a little bit. I don't know if I'll do this for everything. We'll just kind of see how it goes, see how fast I can do it. But I thought I would look up some books while we go and just see right now what the value happens to be. Not to brag about how much my comics are worth or any of my collection is worth, but I imagine folks will be curious about it, and I haven't looked anything up in a very long time, and sometimes it's kind of fun to just know what you're sitting on. And I mean, it is, a potential investment in its way if you're ever in dire straits, or you really needed to buy something for your kids. Hi Braden, it's good to see you, man. Or what have you. It'd be good to know what you're sitting on. And also, at some point, I need to get everything appraised so that I can get insurance on my collection. People all the time telling me I need to do that, and that's probably true in case it all ever went up in a fire or something. So it would be nice to have a ballpark, to have a kind of a good idea about what some of the stuff is worth. So maybe we'll look at that as we go along. And like I said, I don't have any intention on selling any of this. There's a couple of things I occasionally kick around, maybe going and selling, that are valuable and not like my favorite things or anything. But by and large, I kind of plan on hanging on to everything. So just for, my information, and because you guys might be curious about it, we'll look up some of those things as we go. And I hope that doesn't make me look like I'm, again, bragging about having a super valuable comic collection. I've got all kinds of stuff that aren't worth anything, but also I'm curious to know what things have gone up in value and what things I have that I don't even realize are worth anything. It's a good thing to know. Adam March says, how many graded comics would you say you have of the 10,000 issues? I can tell you how many. I have one. I have one CGC comic, and it's because it's a thing that my dad gave me for Christmas a couple of years ago. It's an issue of Boom. Not Boom, IDW Ninja Turtles, of Tom Waltz's Ninja Turtles, that my dad found. He's a dealer, not just comics, but all kinds of stuff. But he runs a flea market, and he came into some comics, and I get phone calls from him every so often going, hey, I've got comics. I pull up your what do you call it? Your collection list, whatever. I use a database is the word I was trying to think of. I've got a database I use. It's CLZ, which is really good for comics, but also they've got separate apps for all kinds of other stuff. I also use it for video games and books. And anyway, I digress. Sometimes he'll call me up and we'll gap fill together, and he'll hold comics back for me that I'll buy from him. And that time he just held that back and gave it to me. So that's and I'll show that on one of these streams. But that's the only CGC book I have. I've never sent any off to get graded. I've kicked it around, but I've never bought any that way. I nearly recently pulled the trigger on one, and I decided to hold off on it because there's a few that are nicely priced on eBay that aren't real hard to get your hands on. But the one CGC book I would most like to have, I think, is a first printing of the Tick number 1. Which is not, oddly, even though it wasn't, a huge print run or anything, it's not as valuable as you might think. It's not too difficult to get your hands on. And I think a CGC copy I can still get for about $100. That's the one big one I'd kind of like to have that way. And Jareth says, I think I missed the ship of selling She-Hulk after the show. They seem to be selling a lot lower. Yeah, that can happen with stuff. And it's really unpredictable, and just how speculative the market is. Sometimes things will get really popular, but it won't affect comics at all. That did not happen with Deadpool. New Mutants 98 went through the roof for a while when Deadpool became such a massive popular powerhouse, and especially after the movie, but it has now dropped some in value. And I'll say real quick, I actually have a copy of that, and that's the one kind of key issue that I consider selling sometimes, just because I'm not the biggest Deadpool guy. I don't collect Deadpool real hard. I have a few issues here and there, but I happen to have his first appearance that I got lucky and wound up in a collection with a guy that just didn't know what he had, and it's in really good shape. Again, I've not graded any of my books. It's probably a 9.0, 9.2. Like, it's really pretty. It doesn't have any spine damage or anything, or creases or anything. And I think sometimes about selling that just before they aren't, very valuable anymore. Braden Atkinson, what's a CGC? Pardon me, that's the grading comic service. So you send it to the comic graders, and they, depending on what it is, I think it's typically around, I want to say it's $100. But I've never actually done it, and I'm going off of years old information now. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but you send it to them, and they do a grading for it, and then they send it back sealed in a translucent plastic box that you can't open, and the idea of that is it's in the exact shape it was when we got it. We've certified that that's that this is the value of it, and this is the shape it's in, whether it's in poor, good, fine, very fine, mint condition, and there's a number that goes along with that. So, the highest it can be is a 10. You're hardly ever going to see like a 10, but you see some 9.8s and that sort of thing. Anyway, I haven't even started showing books yet. Let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing from that notebook that I mentioned, apologies for the rambling, is Adventure Comics. I feel like I'm doing a review because I'm doing this in... the setup that I always do reviews in, so I feel like I need to start talking about this book. But I have in fact reviewed this, and I think I reviewed it shortly after I got my hands on it. This is in really pretty shape. This is Adventure Comics number 462, which came out in April of 1979, and I only know that because it actually says it on the cover. Most comics will not tell you the date, the year that it came out on the cover. Usually you have to look at the publishing information inside to see that. But let's go ahead and see what that is valued out at. I went ahead and pulled that up knowing that that was the first book that we were going to look at. Everything else I'm going to have to type in, so just bear with me, folks, on this. We'll really take our time. But this is Adventure Comics 462, and whoever I got this from, because I think this is like a flea market find, or maybe my dad found this, but it was clearly at a flea market at one point because of the label that I have on the front of this, but it claims to be fine or very fine, and it claims to be a 7.0. So if that's to be believed, looking at the price charting, we're using pricecharting.com here, and so this is looking at like sold listings from eBay and also looking at CGC to give us a sense, a ballpark of what people have been willing to pay for it lately. So it's not an arbitrary number that's assigned to it. It's based on times people have actually bought this and in the recent past. So if this label is to be believed, this would be somewhere between that fine and very fine grade you see there. So a 6.0 sold for $41.70 and an 8.0 for $59.32. So mine should be somewhere in between there, which means this issue, the way I have it, is probably worth around $50 right now. So if I wanted to sell this at the moment and I lowballed it a little bit and put it up on eBay or Facebook Marketplace for around $40, I'd probably sell it pretty quickly if there was anybody that was after it. So that gives you kind of a sense of how these things are valued. Price charting seems to be the standard right now for a lot of collectibles, particularly video games. I see that as the source a lot. But anyway, this is in really pretty shape. It's about the supposed death of Batman. Again, I have a review of that on the channel. And now we'll start trying to go through a little bit quicker. Then on the back of that, I have Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Avengers. This is Avengers number 23 by Kurt Busiek, and there's a somewhat amusing story behind this one. And again, I'm going to show you guys every issue just so you can see the covers, and it'll be fun for me to go through and see things that I forget that I have, or that I haven't looked at in a long time, or that maybe I bought at a collection or was gap filling and hardly ever paid any attention to, because I have lots of stuff like that. But anyway, I had this signed, as you can see on the cover there, by Kurt Busiek himself, who I met at the Superman celebration probably 9 or 10 years ago. Maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And I think that was the last time I went. I actually haven't been to Superman Celebration in a long time, but I used to go every year, and I didn't realize Kurt Busiek was going to be at that show, so I didn't bring anything for him to sign, and I was really kind of kicking myself because I would have brought Marvels. And so I had to hunt through boxes from some dealers there, because there are comic dealers that go to that show, and find something that Kurt Busiek wrote. And that's what I wound up with. So a random issue of Avengers I've never read. I have very little Avengers. This is a Scarlet Witch and Vision cover with what's his face, Wonder Man, it looks like on the cover. But I like the way Kurt Busiek signs, because he likes to put in dialogue balloons. And there's a selfie with me and Busiek on the Geekvolution Facebook somewhere, where a lot of people commented and said that he looks like a decades older version of me. We actually look kind of similar, me and Kurt Busiek, which is really funny. So I'm going to attempt to look this up real quick. I'm going to assume that issue is not worth very much at all. That is an early 90s issue of Avengers. So Avengers 23, which of course there are lots of different volumes of Avengers, but it's hard to just look it up by volume on here. So I'm just going to say 23 and see if the right year happens to pop up real quick. If these take too long as I'm going, I'm just not going to bother with it, because sometimes it just doesn't go as fast as you want it to look up. Avengers 23, 1999. There we go. So this issue at... Okay, there must have been something special about that 8.0, because it actually doesn't make any sense at all that a book that is 807 fine would suddenly be worth $100 at very fine. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, because then a 9.8 sold at 34. So maybe that was signed, and it's also hard to say how much it's worth with Kurt Busiek's signature on it. So just forgetting about the signature for a minute, it looks like it's probably not worth much more than $8 or $10. But maybe Busiek's signature would pop it up to 20 or 30, would be my guess. Let's see if there's any comments here. Hi, guys. Braden Atkinson, how valuable is that signature? That's a good question, and maybe we can just look that up. Because I think there are, like, celebrity value, or at least there used to be, websites that would just tell you how much a celebrity signature is worth. But I don't know if comic artists and writers, wind up on those sites and are really considered celebrities in that way by those websites. And I'm not finding that right away. I'm just finding some various books signed by him and what people are asking for them. But again, it's really going to depend on what the book is, I would think. Like, for instance, somebody's got the original 4 Marvels signed by Busiek for $50 for the whole thing, and it's his signature's on it 4 times. So I wouldn't think his signature would be worth more than maybe another $5 or $10, just based on that. If I can consider that as evidence. Jareth, nice cap. I'm trying to collect Scarlet Witch and Vision Avengers. They're getting harder to find. Oh, interesting. Wow. I wonder why that is. Like, I wonder if any of the MCU stuff had people, seeking after those real hard, like WandaVision or anything. But I had not heard that, if that's the case. Adam March, I'm happy to hear you only have a few Avengers books, least interesting big name Marvel team. I mean, I feel that way myself, honestly, but I've just never delved real hard into that series. Okay, I have a feeling that this series is going to be thousands of episodes long if I continue at the rate I'm going. Here is Batman number 24 from Zero Year, so obviously a much more recent book signed by Scott Snyder, who I met at Planet Comic-Con several years ago. I'm not sure what year, probably 16 maybe, so 7 or 8 years ago. So we'll look this up, and again, I don't know what Cappola's signature is worth, or if anything from that series is worth more than, $5 or $10, but let's find out, because some of that stuff is probably somewhat sought after just because of the popularity of it or of the key issue nature of certain things. Let's see here, Batman 24. I found it. Okay, it looks like this one is... I was right in the ballpark. It looks like this one is worth somewhere between $10 and $15, depending on what this would be graded for. It looks like mine does have some spine creases. I used to exclusively read my books in singles, because that's how I had them, and that's how I was able to look at them. And now I tend to read everything in digital, so even when I do buy new issues, I don't typically actually open them and read them, and so everything ends up in nicer shape. Unless I have an unfortunate snafu with a comic box and something gets bent, which has happened occasionally and is always really depressing, or at least depending on what it is, it can be pretty depressing. But I would say mine's probably closer to the very fine than your mint, maybe even a little bit lower than a very fine. So that's a $10 book, except it's got Snyder's signature on it, so maybe I'd be able to pass it off for somewhere between 15 and 20. Would be my guess. Okay, this is one of my favorite detective covers, and these will be much more interesting to look up, by the way, but look at the shape, and I think I have shown this on camera before, but look at the shape this thing is in. This is Detective 378, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, this is also a more high-end bag. It's a lot prettier than my regular bags, but it really is in this good a shape. I'm seeing a lot less spine creasage than you usually would have for a book this old, and just look at the colors. Like it looks about as vibrant as I would have expected when it was originally on the newsstand. And that's why I bought this, and I remember getting a pretty good deal on this. I think I bought a bunch of like 60s and 70s detective from one guy once out of his living room, a guy that my dad found that he bought some comics from him. And then I was invited to his house, and I think he said if I spent $100 with him or more, he'd give me those detectives for $10 a piece, and they're definitely worth more than that. So I think I did. I think I got 10 detectives for $10, and I know I spent $300 with him and got some other things. So that stuff will be sprinkled through this. But that was some of these were quite defined, and the next one will excite some of you guys too. Detective 378. Let's look that up real quick. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing this for the next few years. Okay, Detective 378 at very fine is worth $58. And again, that's just based on the last time somebody bought one. Near mint, so 9.2 would be $129. When I was a kid, all I cared about was the top value, just to be able to go around and say, I have a $100 or $200 comic book. I knew I was never going to sell it, and I don't mean that I would go around lying to people, but what I would say is, if all things were equal and this was in perfect shape, this would be the value of it. And I always thought it was cool just to say that I had in my possession a thing that might have been worth that much money if only it had been perfectly taken care of. And obviously my stuff was never in that good of shape, but even if I had like a 6 or a 7 point oh, the idea that if it was a 9.2 it would be worth $100 something was always kind of a kick for me. So this is a book that, if it was in that kind of shape, would be worth over $100. Mine is probably worth somewhere between 40 and 50, I would guess. But I mean, we're already sitting on well over $100 here, just with like 3 or 4 ratios. So that's pretty cool. Wood Grain Beanie, that is a nice looking book. Thanks. It looks like some more folks have sprinkled in here. Good to see. I keep saying that. Sprinkled in. Have popped in. Good to see you guys. Thanks for hanging out really late at night on a Sunday. Makura, hello. Turning in my 50 Marvel characters list. Something my brain can't think of any names. What circle of hell would you send me to if it's submitted at 12:05? Well, let me talk about that just really briefly, and that'll really date the stream. But for those of you that don't know, we're doing a cool project right now where we're trying to compile our audiences in our community, I should say, because I'm participating, my whole family's participating. Your top 50 favorite DC characters, your top 50 favorite Marvel characters, ranked from 1 to 50, favorite to least favorite, and my deadline originally was tonight at midnight. I've decided to extend it a few days because Austin has reported that we're getting at least 5 to 10 every day trickling in. So I was going to say if we didn't have enough by now, I was going to go ahead and cap it off. We actually have a pretty decent amount. We're sitting around 50. My goal was 100, which I thought might be a pipe dream, but I don't think we're going to get quite that far, but I would have accepted 50 if the last couple days we got very little, but they're still coming in. And it's going to take Austin a little while to get all of the information together. So I thought, and I've got a different stream I've got to do tomorrow night anyway, because Jason and I just saw Twisters, and we're going to review that tomorrow night. So I thought, you know what, let's give everybody a few more days. So if you haven't gotten yours in yet, you have some time. We'll probably cap it off around Thursday or Friday, and I'll try to do that stream early the following week. Wood Grain Beanie, thank you for the support. $5 super chat. He says, the only books I have that are worth anything are Morris for Swamp Thing. Oh, that's a great find, though. And First Appearance of the Mask. Those are both pretty neat, though. I'm a little bit jealous of you, especially on the Mask. I have the original trades of those in terrible shape, too, because when I bought them, they got damaged real bad in shipping. We'll go through my meager trade collection at some point with one of these streams. But anyway, here is a famous cover and a key issue that a lot of you guys will recognize. And this is not in as good of shape as the one I just showed you. It looks like it's dog-eared a little bit, but it still doesn't look terrible. I would put this at probably, I don't know, maybe a 6.0. maybe a little bit less than that. But anyway, this is Detective number 475, the famous Jokerfish issue, and it was really exciting and a big deal to me when I managed to get this, and at the pretty inexpensive price that I paid for it. Let's look that up and see what that's worth right now. That, of course, is an Englehart issue. Detective 475. This is actually more fun looking them up, I'm feeling like. Okay, this is actually a little bit more valuable than even I thought. So if I had an 8.0, it would be worth 186, and a 9.2 would be 242. A 6, like I said, this might be, is a 156, but even a 4.0, a very good, which this might be closer to be honest with you, with the dog ear and all of that. And there's, well, and you know what, it's creased on the bottom too. And obviously, I'm also not opening these up right now and looking at the interiors, which matters, of course, like, you know, the coloration and you know, whether there's any kind of water damage or anything like that. But anyway, even a 4.0 is worth $120. So this issue is definitely worth more than $100. So we're sitting on at least 3 right now. Dan's Den, good to see you. Andrew, I submitted my list, but would maybe like to go back and review. Yeah, and you can. It turns out that with... Oh, pardon me. It turns out that with the system we're using, you can go in and amend your list even after you've sent it in. I do believe. We're using Google Forms for that. Braden, yeah, that is higher than I thought. Yeah, I thought so too. Woodgrain Beanie, God, I wish I had some cool vintage books like that. I gotta tell you, I've gotten really lucky over the years because, like I said, some of it is my dad being in the junk business. He runs into things, and I used to buy out collections and sell what I didn't want and kept the rest. I've got stories about those things that I'll tell as I go along through these things over the many, many streams that it will take to go through these books. Okay, next up we have another key issue, and I reviewed this a couple of years ago, I guess early last year when I was doing Not Spawn Year, and if I can find the time, I'd like to go back and do more single-issue reviews in that format. But here is Captain America number 117, which is the first appearance of the Falcon, and again, not in the absolute best shape. There's a little bit of writing on the top left corner, and the coloration isn't great, but I don't know, that's probably somewhere between a 4 and a 5, maybe more on the 5 side, but let's find out what that one's worth right now. 117. The other thing that's nice about looking these up is it tells us what the dates are as well. So 1969. Although I'm not sure if that year is when the series starts. No, it's not, because it's the first one, Captain America. So yeah, that year should actually be when this issue came out. So if I had, and this is probably because hardly anybody is going to be able to find one of these now, but if I had a near mint, a 9.2, this would be a $1,500 book. Mine has got to be worth around $200. It's somewhere between a 4 and a 6, and that puts it at $179 to $259. So we're sitting here on you know around $500 right now, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I reviewed that. It's very hokey, it's very silly, and that original Falcon costume is, in my opinion, just terrible. But I like Sam Wilson a lot. It's a really neat thing to have in my collection. So next up, I'm going to go to an early Daredevil. And again, everybody keep in mind that a lot of the series we're looking at right now, we're going to revisit later and get to all of the rest of the books that I have when we get to those boxes. I have a lot of early Daredevil. And this isn't even the earliest I have, but this is Daredevil number 50. I'm not even sure why I put this in that notebook. Maybe just because the cover looks relatively vibrant. Yeah, now that I'm looking at this does look pretty clean. That is a pretty issue. And again, just kind of ballparking it without opening it, that is probably at least a 6. If not higher. Like, that spine looks really pretty. some of these I haven't looked at in a long time. But yeah, I'm not sure who. Can somebody tell me? Because I don't want to pop this open, but I can't even tell who the villain is. Some generic, kind of C-lister, but his back is turned. Not the best cover either. But anyway, Daredevil 50. Maybe I put that in there because at the time it was the earliest Daredevil I owned. I definitely have more than that now. Okay, so this is probably a $35, $37 book. Somewhere between a 4 and a 6. Well, I said maybe probably higher than a... No, I think it's probably a 6 or a little higher. So yeah, this is probably a $35, $40 book. So that's cool. Let's see what else folks are saying in the comics out of March. Not Spawn Year with a Heart. Yeah, I'll try to go back to it at some point. Or I would really like to anyway. And I've almost sat down and started making those again. And then I'm like, no, I don't have the time to do them every day. And of course, I didn't finish that the year I wanted to. But if I went back to it, I would love to make it a daily thing again. And try to just have 365 of those. Yeah, Dan Stan, it's definitely not the Hulk. He's wearing a goofy costume. Wood Green Beanie, every collection stream makes me want to go dig into my own cap. Well, like I told you before, you should do your own. It's fun to see these from everybody that's got cool stuff. Adam Marsh, the villain in Daredevil 50 is a generic robot, I believe. I would like to go back and read all of that run. I've read the first 10, and I realize Stan Lee's not still writing by this point, but... All right, then moving right along, getting to more Daredevil. So these next couple are very exciting. This is the classic. Oh, I wish that crease wasn't there. This is the classic Daredevil 181, and I gotta tell you, so this is the very famous One Wins, One Dies cover, and this is an issue. I don't even want to tell this story. It hurts my feelings so much. This is an issue that I at one time had actually a cleaner, nicer copy of in my collection. And I had a flea market booth a few years ago where I was selling comics. And so I was doing the same thing I did when I was selling comics online. I would keep what I wanted, I would sell the rest, and I would have to sometimes make sacrifices so that I could stay in the green. And what I meant to do when I got... So I bought out a collection, and I managed to get my hands on some key issues of Daredevil and a couple of other things. I think there was some, like, Web of Spider-Man, and was it Web of Spider-Man, or was it Peter Parker's pick? I forget what, but there was some cool stuff in there. And my plan was to take 181 and the Death of Elektra issue and trade out mine and put these in the flea market booth and get those in the boxes. And for whatever reason, I forgot to do it. And I took them to the flea market and I put them on the shelves, and I should have been able to tell, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I really can't remember how exactly this happened. If I just, like, threw my hands in the air and went, you know what, whatever, they're expensive, they probably won't even sell right away, I'll just go ahead and put them up there. I don't know why I would have done that, though. Or if I just went, mine are still fine, I'll just go ahead and sell these, because I knew they would bring more. Maybe that's what I did, because, I mean, I had to label them, I had to price them, so I had to have known they were the better copies. I'm not sure why I did that. Long story short, they got stolen. And I've kicked myself about that ever since. But I do still have the issue, and it's not in the worst of shape. It's just got a bit of a crease right in the middle of it, which is kind of sad. But I got this from a guy that used to go to my mom's church, who collected a lot in the 70s and wanted to sell his whole collection, but didn't really know how to do it. And he offered it to me, and I was like, well, I'm just a lowly college student. At the time, I didn't have the money to buy it from him. But I said, what I could do is sell your collection for you on eBay, because that's a thing that I was doing then. And you could just let me keep a percentage of the books as a commission. And he did, and there was no stipulation on what I could keep. He said keep any of the books that you want to, any 10%. We signed a contract and everything. So I got all the Amazing Spider-Man, all the Daredevil, and I sold some good stuff for him. Don't get me wrong, I didn't screw him or anything, but He did have a lot of water damage stuff. And so ultimately, I thought I did really good for what he had. And he wasn't, at the end of the day, real happy with how much money I made for him. And I don't think he got that the water damage brought the value down. I couldn't believe how much money I made for him. I can't remember exactly how many books we sold, but I did well over $1,000 for him. And a lot of it, like I said, was water damage stuff. I think I got lucky though, and this one and some of those other keys that I kept were not water damaged. But anyway, let's look at the value of that right now, and then we can cry when mine is not worth anything like the top dollar. But here is Daredevil 181. I'm glad I started with this stuff because we're gonna get into some more kind of boring as far as value goes, but we'll get to look at cool covers and maybe see some of your favorite series. Wow. This book is not worth what I would have thought it was. Well, now I don't feel as bad about not keeping the nicer issue. I thought that this one was worth at least $100. Because I know that's such a famous cover and it's considered a key, I think. But yeah, wow. So a 9.2 is only worth 47. Mine, in the shape it's in, is probably not worth more than $30. Fascinating. But see, it all comes out in the wash if you, again, I don't want to sell my stuff, but if you wanted to sell your stuff, I mean, it all comes out in the wash. Because we've had other things we've looked at that I was really surprised were worth what they were worth. Okay, now we get into another cool signed cover. This is a variant. This is Marvel Zombies #1, of course, by Robert Kirkman, and this is a I'm trying to remember this guy's name because his signature is hard to read, and it's just been years. I mean, it's probably been 15 years since I got this signed. It starts with an S. I can't think of his name. So this is a guy that does a lot of zombie variants, even for things that aren't about zombies. And I met him at a convention, and I had him sign this for me. And I think I got one or two other things from him as well. But yeah, let's see what Marvel Zombies #1 goes for right now. Sonoy, that's not right. I cannot think of that guy's name right now for the life of me. Like I said, it's just kind of hard to read. Okay, Marvel Zombies #1. And keep in mind that this is a variant, but it's not the variant here that's listed. So I don't know if this will actually give us anything like an accurate sense of it. But, well, for a book that came out in the mid-2000s, that's actually pretty hefty. So I would say, just glancing at this is probably a 7, maybe closer to an 8. So this book is going to be worth somewhere between $50 and $60. So that's pretty cool. And then I don't know if that signature does anything for it either. And then on the back of that, and I haven't looked this up in forever, so it's going to be very interesting to see what this is worth now, because like I told you guys earlier, I didn't realize this was in the stack. This is New Mutants 98. And this is the one that I'm saying I would consider maybe going ahead and selling before it really drops in value. Now, is it possible that Deadpool 3 pops this stuff back up again? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. But maybe. I think the ship is probably sailed on that, and we're done with New Mutants 98 increasing in value. But who knows? Stuff's been kind of crazy lately. Comics have been real back and forth. The video game market is skyrocketed and is nuts, and everybody's kind of sitting around waiting. Well, actually, I was going to say waiting for the bubble to burst on that. Some stuff is dropping, but it's still just much higher than it was pre-COVID, and is absolutely nuts when we're talking about, 8, 16-bit cartridges and that kind of thing. Comics, I think, overall have tanked some. So we'll see what New Mutants 98 is worth right now. Like I said earlier, mine is in just gorgeous shape. If this isn't at least an 8, if not an 8.5, I would be shocked. So let's find out. New Mutants 98. Are we even going to get into the first box? Might have to change the name of this stream. Okay, New Mutants 98, and now I'm looking at this going, maybe I should have sold it years ago, because believe it or not, this book used to be worth double what we're looking at here. A 9.2 right now is worth 369, which for a book of that age that was pretty mass produced, that sounds crazy. But when Deadpool was at the height of his popularity, I'm telling you, a 9.2 was worth like $700. And it looks like mine, if I'm correct, and it's at least an 8, it's a $300 book, which is still a hefty amount of change. And I could buy, let's say the majority of the rest of Power Rangers that I'm missing because I dropped off on that, but would still like to eventually have close to a complete set, of Boom Power Rangers. So I'm just thinking of that as an example, like things I could buy with the money if I decided to sell that. So it's a thing I'm kicking around, but I kind of internally cried over selling comics before, so I'm more trepidatious about it than I was when I sold my Spawn collection. Let's see what folks are saying here in the comments. Wood Green Beanie, how is that more than the Daredevil book? I think he's talking about Marvel Zombies #1. Yeah, that actually is really surprising to me too. I mean, I realize Marvel Zombies is a real popular thing, and that's one of those #1s that was probably pretty sought after at one point because people didn't expect it to get as big as it did. I'm sure at one time that was worth double that. Wood Grain Beanie, that seems low. It really does. Andrew Cazzini, AMC, sorry for this getting off topic, Cap, but did you happen to watch through Crisis Part 3 yet? I haven't seen any of those yet. I'm actually considering, and people are telling me they're really, really terrible. So and I have not been real impressed with most of that animated line, Man of Tomorrow notwithstanding. Although I did like Super Sons okay. But I am considering, instead of doing a review of those, doing a reaction stream. I was for weird saying reaction, but that is, I guess, what those are. But doing a kind of a blind watch party on those and seeing if we can get, any fun watching those together, just getting my in-the-moment response to them. I don't know if I would watch them all together as one stream or do a little mini-series on them, but I'm kicking that around. Wood Grain Beanie, wowza, my old comic shop had that for a couple $100 a few years back. Yeah, and it might have been a pretty good deal, or it might have just been based on the condition that it was in. Because if it was only, a 5 or 6, then it would have been a couple $100 book at the time. Thomas Lowe, what is the highest bid you auction before from your collection? Thomas, well, you might have to rephrase that. I don't fully understand. I don't quite understand that question just because of the way you asked it. The highest bid you auctioned before from your collection. You mean that like something I bought for the collection or something I sold out of my collection? I don't quite understand the question. But if you'll rephrase it, I'll come back to it. Andrew Cazzini, one day. Yeah, and this is AMC, who is one of our longtime subscribers that comments all the time, but his name keeps throwing me off. One day I'll have to take the plunge on Marvel Zombies. I love Marvel Zombies a lot. I've reviewed it. I kind of want to go back and review it again and do a more long-form thing on it, because I think I did like 12, 13 minutes on it years ago. Okay, we are already almost at an hour, so I'll go a little later tonight, and I'll try to blow through this box. Here is the Powerpuff Girls movie adaptation, which is a cover I love, and I have a complete DC Powerpuff Girls collection. This is actually one of 2 copies I have of this, because I think I bought this separately from the collection that one of our subscribers years ago graciously just gifted me. Finding out I was a big Powerpuff Girls fan. I think I reviewed an issue and he just sent me the whole thing. But I think I maybe already had this, or I got it Or maybe I got this from him. I'm not sure, but I know I have 2 copies of this. But anyway, I have met Phil Moy a couple times. Hilariously, this has a certificate of authenticity, which means this I did not get signed by him. But I have a couple of other signatures from him. He comes to Planet Comic Con every year in Kansas City. I actually met him again this year and got a print from him. And the Powerpuff Girls tattoo that I have, the Mojo Jojo, and I showed that off again a couple weeks ago when I did a stream about my tattoo collection in the series, was drawn by him, the Bubbles Mojo Jojo. And so I showed him that in person, and he thought it was quite weird that I did that, but seemed... And I actually had messaged him about it before, and I think he'd forgotten, but he was really cool about it, and I think he was flattered. Thomas Lowe, sold out of your collection, sir. I have, so it's a sticky wicket, right? Because I hardly ever sell anything directly out of my collection, but I used to buy collections and then sell pieces out of them. So it's split in hairs, because if I never put it in my collection, but I had it, on racks meant to be sold, I don't consider it having been in my collection. But as far as just things that I've had in my possession that I have sold, if he's asking, because he said that you bid, so I guess what he means is, what's the most expensive thing I sold? Like how much have I made on like a single issue or on a run or something? Because I rarely sold singles. I would put as close to complete runs together, or sets together as I could. And honestly, it's hard to say, because it's been so many years and I sold a lot of stuff and I just don't really remember. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think I ever had an auction go for more than a couple $100, but I definitely had auctions that were worth that much, and that brought that. And what was fun was when people would get in bidding wars on things, where it became real personal, and they would shoot things up to the moon, and it would go past what they were worth. That was always really fun. The Ends Dan, I remember those DC Cartoon Network series. I used to have a bunch of Dexter's Lab issues. Yeah, I reviewed 1 or 2 of those when I was doing Not Spawn Year as well. What was on the back of this? Nothing. Oh, yeah, that's right. Just the certificate of authenticity. Okay. Everybody give me just a second here, and then I'll start blowing through this box. Okay, we'll start running through this stuff, hopefully a bit quicker, because we won't have as many keys and things that'll be as interesting to look up. And I don't think I'll look up every individual issue of the series, although if I don't do that, there might be something that escapes us. So we'll see what we can do. We'll see how long it takes us to look stuff up. It hasn't been as bad as I thought it might be, using price charting. Wood Green Beanie, I had the first appearance of Sam Wilson as Cap and sold it around Falcon and Winter Soldier for like $200. Wow, was it in better shape than the one I've got? Because it looks like mine's worth about half that now. But yeah, back then, it probably would have been worth more. AMC, cool, I actually like Crisis on the whole, barring how it affects existing DC animated series. Oh, interesting. Spoilers, no, I'm kidding. Because, yeah, I know there's DCAU stuff there, and that's supposed to have Conroy's last performance. And I saw that there was a clip on YouTube of that the other day, but I haven't watched it because I wanted to see it in the context of the movie. Okay, first thing here, I won't look up independent underground stuff that I know is probably not on there, just by... like locals and people I've known and stuff, but I'm going to show you everything that's in the box. So the first 2 things I have here are from a series that I reviewed when it came out, again, over a decade ago now, called 41 by Bob France. This was from a publisher called Primal Paper, which was where Manos got his start, who used to be on the channel and used to do stuff with me here. and that was Justin Cristelli, and he had a series called Red Knight that he did a good 8-10 issues of that I have all of, and he did a trade for that as well. And anyway, I reviewed these back when they came out. Really cool covers. And then we've got, there was like a post-apocalyptic thing. And then I've got a lot of 52. This is the beginning of DC's obsession with this number. And I've never read all of this, but this is one of those things that I was buying out collections. And there was actually one guy I was buying from on eBay that I would get just boxes from of like just DC or just Marvel. Sometimes I could buy a box of just Batman. And I was doing that when I was selling at the flea market booth. Because the difference between selling, I should say this real quick, on eBay in the flea market booth is, in the flea market booth it was actually nice to have single issues. And you could move them because people were gap filling. But when you were selling online, it was harder to move stuff unless you had runs or, like, you know, as unbroken sets as you could get. And so I had to kind of sell differently. So I would want to buy out personal collections when I was selling on eBay, and I would be fine buying just random assortment boxes when I was selling in the flea market booth. And there was this guy I loved to buy from. I probably bought 20 boxes from that guy. And he would have big clumps of particular books, but then sometimes what would happen is if I bought multiple boxes from him, it would wend back around and I would wind up with more issues from a series that I had just started collecting because of what I was getting from him. 52 was one of those. And so I don't have every issue, but I have quite a few of them. And this was a series that was it kind of felt like a mini Crisis that introduced Batwoman, and it had and it came out weekly, as the name would suggest. So let's see what those are worth right now. I wouldn't expect a great deal, but we're gonna find out. So yeah, 52 number one is worth somewhere between $7 and $12. So it's definitely gone up in value from the cover. That's cool. When I was a kid, if I got anything that came out within my lifetime, it typically wasn't worth much more than the initial cover. And so it's kind of fun to see things actually go up in value. So in my head, a book that was $2 or $3 when it came out that's worth 10 or 12 now feels like a win because of, you know, the way I was collecting when I was a kid. Old habits die hard, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I said, I'm going to show every cover, even if I don't talk about everything. Frickin' Booster Gold there on the cover. So this is immediately the worst cover of New 50 or of 52. Obviously, week 2. Again, these came out starting in 2006. Will this allow me to just click on the series? Yes, cool. This is useful. So what this is going to let us do is get kind of a ballpark without having to look at each individual issue. So it looks like all of these are going to be around the same. And this is the ungraded price that you're seeing here, but graded 6, 8. I like to go with that just to get kind of a sense of, you know, what it is based on what shape it's in. And I believe the graded number is different than actually having something full on CG seed, but I might be wrong about that. So if you have to actually get the thing graded in order to sell it, then you would be, I didn't even think about this earlier, you would get a significantly lower price probably than if it was in that case with that certificate. So that's a thing to keep in mind when I'm throwing these values at you. So some of the stuff I was talking about earlier that was, you know, worth like $100 or $200 with that numbered rating, maybe you wouldn't be able to get, you know, close to that without getting it actually graded. But, you know, still, you're still looking at probably $300 or $400 worth of stuff over in that pile, even before you get to New Mutants 98. But again, I digress. It's not that important. I'm not going to sell this stuff. Okay, 52. Week 4. Now we're just going to look at covers. This is week 10, so we're skipping up a little bit. I'll have to gap fill the rest of this at some point. 13. That's a cool cover with recognizable superheroes in robes there. I'm going to have to actually sit down and read this at some point. I noticed the other day I actually have the novel version of that by Greg Cox. Greg Cox is not a great writer, so I don't know if I'll ever actually sit down and read that, but I have it over here. This is 14. It's nice that the numbers are like spelled out in letters. They're really easy to read. Here's 15. Oh, the Booster Gold Memorial issue. His last battle. Okay, never mind. This is immediately the best cover because it's a dead Booster Gold. And that's really the only good Booster Gold. 16. So the question was huge in this, and I want to say this is 52 where Renee Montoya becomes the question. I think that's right. 17, here's kind of a weird Lobo cover. It looks like some of these I even bought at a local vintage stock, just gap filling. This is week 18. Here's a Dr. Fate issue. There was some kind of Justice Society stuff in that book, I think. Here's week 19. Wow. I don't know if I ever will read 52 now. There's so much Booster Gold in it. I mean, he died a few issues ago, and now he's back. We're dealing with him again. Stupid people from the future able to come back and cause problems even when you watched them die. Oh, look, it's the origin of Adam Strange. Here's week 20. Make sure there's not a lot of glare on these. 21, Infinity Inc. 22, Magnus Robot Hunted. I think it's Magnus Robot Hunter. Black Adam, I forgot, was part of this series. There's 23. See, I've got more than half of this. Oh, this is kind of a fun cover. Week 24 with Firestorm doing the We Want You kind of classic Uncle Sam pose. And then that is Ambush Bug there in the background. I wonder how much he appears in this book. I think this series might have hit harder, or differently, maybe I should say, back then, bringing back some characters that hadn't been used in a long time that probably would have been considered more obscure then than they are right now. And keep in mind, this is 20 years ago, before a lot of these characters made very many extra media appearances, or had even been in comics very much recently before that. Now, some of these characters would have been in Justice League Unlimited just before this, like Booster Gold. And the question, week 25. A lot of origins here in the backup features that I was not aware of. 26, The Beast Who Came to Dinner. Looks like kind of a pulp throwback. Some fun covers with this. Oh, apologies for my computer trying to tell me things. Week 27. Oh, this is a Black Canary origin. Might have to take a look at that. 28. Yeah, a lot of these covers I've never really looked at. I don't know who this character is here on the front. I'll get through 52, of which I do not have all 52 issues yet. But it looks like I've got a lot more of the middle to back end of this than I do some of the early. Week 29, Last Days of the JSA. And again, I'm not looking up all these individually because I'm sure these later issues... I'm going to scroll down real quick and just see if there's happens to be any of these that are more valuable because of like the first appearance of a character or something like that. It doesn't look like it though. No, it's all worth about the same, it looks like. A lot of these hover between, $8 and $15. Okay, week 30. This is a pretty cool cover. This is Bruce Wayne, attacking his cape and cowl with a stick some kind of identity issues going on there. Week 31. Who is anybody on the cover of this? Is that... Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway. Yeah, none of these I've looked real close at. Yeah, there's Batwoman. This is a neat cover. This kind of Christmas cover with Batwoman and Nightwing. Some of these I want to say I've never seen these before, but like I know I have. I just wasn't paying real close attention to them when I pulled them out of boxes. Week 34, somebody is unfortunately DOA there in the morgue. 35 with a Lex Luthor cover. Just everybody's in this book. This would be a fun thing to review, to do like a week-to-week series on. Do it one issue at a time. Week 36, that might have been a good contender for like a Spawn Year format. I'm not going to do that, but I'm just saying, you know, if I had thought of that, you know, years ago, it might not have been a bad idea. 38. I'm just distracted by all these origins. Like this one is Red Tornado, and there was a Robin one, and I wonder if they're like truncated or if they're like new updated versions, or if they're alternate history versions. Week 39 with a flying Lex Luthor. This is legitimately the coolest cover, I think. It's provocative to see an image of Lex Luthor in a suit like that with his eyes burning red like he's got heat vision. Flying. Also, I didn't mention this, but I like the kind of ticker tape at the bottom that's sort of like a that's sort of like the scroll watching the news. Where this says Montoya fights a dragon and Lex Luthor Man of Steel. Lex Luthor Man of Steel, by the way, Brian Azzarello. One of my favorite Superman books of all time. Week 40 with a steel cover. You know, forgetting Booster Gold for a minute, I'm really getting enticed to finally sit down and read this. 41. We're getting there. Maybe I will consider taking a year at some point and just reviewing these. That wouldn't be too hard. Read one issue and sit down and talk about it for half an hour, 45 minutes. What do you guys think? Should I do that? I'm gonna kick around maybe doing that. What do you have to start at the beginning of the year? I could just make that like a vault thing. Not to overextend myself and add yet another series right now, but it might be a thing to do at some point. Okay, 42 with a Dr. Fate cover. And then 43. Okay, I have a lot more than half of this. In fact, we've been pretty consecutive for a while here. 44, I'm not sure who that is. But I wasn't noticing the text at the bottom, which gives you some clues. Leaving Nanda Parbat, the Lady in Red, fighting the Four Horsemen. So there's some clues. I still don't know exactly who that's supposed to be. 45. More Black Adam. 46. And this one's got a Batman origin. More Black Adam. It must be... Well, I mean, the whole thing is an ongoing story, but maybe there's kind of two parts with him between there. It's cool, creepy, kind of provocative cover there. 47. We're almost done. Oh, we're missing 48, guys. We're going to have to get our hands on that at some point. Well, luckily, these aren't all that valuable. I can get these all day long for $1 or $2, probably. 49. And then here is 50. Oh, World War III begins here. I hope that's just in this comic and not, you know, in real life in our not too distant future. But anyway, this is a neat cover. Okay, technically this probably is the coolest of these so far, but I'm very partial. You know, my biases are showing with that Lex Luthor flying cover. I love that. I'm going to have to put that out on a rack. You know what might be kind of cool would be... I meant a comic rack. It probably sounded like I said I rack, but I did not say that. It might be cool if I save out some of the coolest covers that I find in each box and then make a comic rack of them and then put that in the background for some of these. You know, sometimes even I impress myself with my brilliant notions. Okay, let's hold that out. I love it. It's so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna hold that out at the risk of breaking up all my boxes. And then I don't know if anything else from that box will wind up here. I mean, I could just make one of 52 because there are some cool covers in here. I guess I'll save this one out too because that is pretty cool. Both of those have kind of a sepia thing going on too. All right, almost done. Week 51 of 52. It's also kind of a cool cover. And week 52 ends here. The year without Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman is over. Yeah, I didn't mention that's kind of, the big premise of this. Which is funny because if you go back to the early 90s and you read Justice League, if you just read Justice League books, it would kind of feel like that because those characters were nowhere to be found in Justice League for quite a while. Okay, I'm going to look and see what people are saying in the comments. My eyes are starting to get hazy because it's late and I've been looking at the screen for a while. But I'm going to press on and try to finish this box if I can. Let's see what time it is. Let's see where we're at. Hour and 11 minutes. Yeah, we can finish this box, I think. I'll try to make sure that we don't go past 2 hours, but should be all right. Robert, one day Cap will see the light and appreciate Booster Gold. No, I refuse. I refuse. Yeah, to March. I was just saying, I didn't say Iraq. This is when I said Iraq. I worried that it sounded like that's what I said. Wood grain beanie. God, I can't see what is going on with my eyes right now. 52 could be a cool weekly thing. Yeah, thanks. I think it's not a bad idea. Robert, I don't think I've read a single... Oh, by the way, good to see you, Robert. I don't think I've read a single issue of 52. That was just before my time getting into new comics. Same here. Some of the first monthly comics I started reading were Morrison's Batman and Robin and Blackest Night. So you started in monthly just a couple of years before I did. Or in new, I mean. Because, yeah, I got in just as Blackest Night was finishing, and that was actually one of the first things I bought, because the comic shop I started frequenting had all of it in singles, and I could buy them all together, and so that's kind of where I started. And then that was, I don't know, just after that was the death of Johnny Storm. I remember that being right around there. There was a cool run of Green Lanterns, or no, Green Lantern Corps going on with Cyborg Superman that I read right around then. Okay, now we get into... I'm not sure why this is right here and wasn't in the numbers. Maybe it's just because it has the word Apocalypse. But yeah, the 2099 AD Apocalypse. I own a lot of the 2999 books. The initial run of them in the 90s, of course. There was a big 2099 initiative again, I think a couple of years ago, and I'd fallen off a current. I didn't buy any of that stuff. I wasn't hearing great things about it anyway. But I've got a lot of the first run stuff, but not everything. But they did some of these, gimmicky kind of holofoil covers. I don't know if I've ever actually read this. And it's not, like a great cover or anything. Should we look that up? Let's see if that's worth anything. I'm going to guess $5, but let's find out. 2099 Apocalypse. See if I can spell Apocalypse right. Nobody knows what that is worth. Nobody sold that recently, so at least with price charting, we don't really know what that's worth. That's all right. We'll just move along here. AMC, I'd be in favor of you reading through 52. Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Again, it wouldn't be too much of a commitment. And then here is just 2099 AD. That's got the scary Doom 2099, which was the series that was, I think, next to Spider-Man, kind of most loved from this run of books. And it wasn't exactly an imprint, but, it kind of felt that way because it was its own universe. But that's got like a dead or dying Spider-Man 2099 on the bottom, which is kind of neat. It still has that holofoil thing. Any other 2099 stuff here? Yes. Okay, so we have 2099. I'm not going to look that up either. It's probably worth whatever the other one is. 2099 Manifest Destiny. I think this was this a mini series or no? This is a one shot. Well, you know what? On second thought, I'm going to go ahead and look that one up just because I couldn't get anything on that first one. Let's see. Manifest. That didn't work. Okay, hang on. Manifest Destiny. Let's just look it up like that and see if... Oh, of course, there is a whole series called Manifest Destiny. I forgot about that. Yeah, I'm not finding it right away because of that other series, so I'm just going to move along here. Robert, I don't really buy monthly comics anymore except for maybe a cool miniseries here or there. I bought a ton of Rebirth for the first couple of years and slowly dropped off. Yeah, so you got in and lost interest all around the same time as I did. So we were in for a good 10 years. And I think a lot of people do this where it stops being for us. At least enough of the things that we were really interested in that we lose interest. And even if there's great stuff coming out, it just feels like it's not our time, it's not our era anymore. And that doesn't mean that you can't come back in and get real diehard into it again. Maybe someday that will happen with me. Although some of it for me now too is technology, where even if I get real invested in a bunch of stuff in a line, I don't know that I have to own it as much anymore just because I have access and other ways to read stuff. And so I tend to be a little pickier now about what I buy, and I just get singles that I have really cool covers that I just want, or are of like characters that I collect a lot. And I'm not gonna have every issue or be 100% on anything, especially anymore. Like I used to own almost every Venom thing, and then that just got super oversaturated, and I kind of lost interest. I kind of don't care to own all of it anymore. For me at this point, and I think at some point I also realized that I'm the only one that really cares what I have. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm doing a series showing it to you guys, so I guess you care in the sense that maybe you're curious to see what I have. But I guess what I mean is anybody really judging me for not owning all of Venom? Again, and if they did, wouldn't that be kind of silly? Where it's like, oh, Cap, you didn't spend your hard-earned money on, all of like Venomverse or the, other Venomverse thing they did. Do I have to have all of that stuff? Like, no, nobody actually really cares besides me. So I don't really want it. I guess I don't have to have it. 2099 World of Doom Special. These I got in the first collection that I ever bought out. I lucked out and got a bunch of the 2099 stuff I didn't have. 2099 AD Genesis. Some of the 2099 stuff I don't have. I don't have much of, if any, of Punisher. I don't have all of Doom. In fact, I don't think most of the series I have all of besides Spider-Man. I do have a complete collection of the first run, 2099 Spider-Man. I have like a couple issues of X-Men, but not all of it because I didn't like it a lot. Although the first issue read better to me a couple years ago or last year when I reviewed that. But Ravage 2099, I don't have all of that. I probably don't have any of that. Okay, here is Adventure Comics 268, and I thought I owned a little bit more than this, but I'm only seeing this one issue in here. I think Jason may be in another box, because he used to keep all of his comics all together when he was younger, and he always liked this series for whatever reason. So if we would get into some Silver Age, and I got some of these, he would ask for them. But this is Adventure 268, and these tended to be about Superboy. So that'll be fun to look up. Let's do that. I'm sure those $29.99 books aren't really worth that much. We're not going to bother with those. But Adventure Comics 268. Yeah, so as I'm looking at this, maybe it's more accurate to say like somewhere around the ungraded price is what I would really realistically be able to get for these. But then I still think that people pay more based on what the actual value is, even if it's not graded. So I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know how smart it is for us to actually be looking at the graded numbers with these. Probably not, the more I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I'm just trying to decide if I should actually keep using price charting. Let me check something else real quick too, because there's another thing I used to use Comic Book Realm to get a sense of what I should price things at in my flea market booth. It's 264. Let me look it up here. Oh, and see, I can't just look these up on this website just by number like that. So then you got to kind of scroll down and find it. Yeah, and see here, there's just one value listed. I don't know how interesting this is to anybody but me, but yeah, let's see, 268. So the one value they show is 300, but if you actually click on it, I want to say, yeah, weird. They just give you the one value. But then that's also based on CGC. Okay, so we'll just keep going with that. So just keep in mind, like, this is what it would be worth if you got it graded, and getting it graded, it costs a bit of a chunk of change also. But I know that people are gonna pay more if it's in better shape. So anyway, we'll just keep doing this kind of the way we have been, but it looks like a very good define. Wow, there's a big spread between the 4.0 and the 6.0, but it looks like this is, at least were it graded, probably around a $50 to $60 book. Again, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to sell this stuff. Adam March, Stan Lee is rolling in his grave knowing Cap doesn't own a complete Ravage 2099. Stan Lee wouldn't have remembered who Ravage was. I remember when I created... Wait, who's Ravage? Robert, trades are also way easier to collect and organize. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I've always collected singles because it's just what I did going all the way back. I love cool covers, and I just like the bulk of it. I like the sheer number that you can get. That was always fun to me. People won't be surprised to know that I try to be about quality, but I'm also about quantity. I like being able to have a bunch of these things in a box. It's fun sorting through them. I like the flats, as some of us call them, and it was, for a long time, when I was growing up, there weren't as many trades, it wasn't as much about that. And I've said this 100 times, but I was really used to just cracking open an issue and reading the 22 pages wherever it fell in the middle of a story. And the concept of reading a complete story was foreign to me for the longest time. And I also collected a lot more than I actually read back then. Here is Age of Ultron. And is this actual Age of Ultron? Yeah, it is. Because there was also a what if of these, and I was making sure that I didn't file it wrong. But yeah, let's see what Age of Ultron #1 is worth now. See if that has gone up in value at all. This was a series that I remember liking it okay, but it was kind of frustrating at the time because you had a movie coming out the very next year that couldn't have been based on the series that was called that because they were telling totally different stories. And I had not really read much about Ultron. And so I was reading this book and learning about Hank Pym and his creation of Ultron and all of that. And then I you get into the movie and it isn't that, but then we get Ant-Man right after that. And all of that was just really weird and awkward to me at the time. Yeah, it looks like this is about a $10-15 book. So yeah, nothing to really write home about, but that's where we're at with that. So I'll just blow through the Age of Ultrons real quick. If memory serves, okay, let's see if I'm right about this, because it's been, a decade now. This came out in 13. If memory serves, Age of Ultron was like 7 or 8 issues. And then I think they made it longer than it was supposed to be, and I think it had point ones. I think this was around the time where Marvel started getting obsessed with this weird point one idea, where you'd have, and when I say point ones, I mean it would finish, and then it would have a point one, a point two, and a point three, instead of just continuing on with the numbering. So it felt like it was all epilogue, but I can't remember if it read that way or if it read like it was just the rest of the series. It's just been too long. But anyway, so here's book 2 with Black Widow on the cover. This is a really exciting time because Avengers was suddenly the hottest thing going on, because this is a year before or a year after the 2012 movie came out. This was a Bendis thing, and Bendis was super hot right then. I was reading a lot of his stuff just after this, when we get into Marvel Now, and he is doing his X-Men, where he was publishing 2 books at once, and his Guardians of the Galaxy, book 4. Yeah, I remember all these covers. This all kind of feels like yesterday. Except I can't remember what exactly happens in the book, but just looking at these covers, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. Side scrolling here, I totally forgot about that point one thing until you brought it up. Yeah, it was obnoxious. It was so silly. Here's book 6. I miss these really epic covers that we were doing at that time that just looked, really heroic. Wolverine back in his brown for some reason. AVX had some of the best event covers. I own all of the events from this period, really. All the big events, like the yearly things that Marvel and DC were doing. So you'll see all of this stuff. And then here is 9. Okay, I thought the point one thing happened by now. This is not a great cover. Who drew that? I can't tell right away. Is that a Pacheco cover, or is... Yeah, I'm not sure if that's if the guy who drew the interiors did the front, but... Here's 10. Wherever we're at the end of this, or by 2 hours, I'm going to go ahead and call it quits, because it's already 1:45 here. Okay, yeah, here we go. So here's book 10, AI. All right, Age of Ultron, AI. But, like, it's not a different book or, like, a spin-off, because it's still numbered with the rest of it. Why did we do that? Might be interesting to go back to some of these. Oh, okay. No, I was wrong. I must have been thinking of a different book when I said that. Maybe it was Fear itself that did it? I'm not sure. Here is a Dynamite issue that I bought. I just bought this first issue, and I think it was kind of bad, so I didn't keep going with it. But here's Agent 47, Birth of the Hitman, a character that I always want to think of myself as a fan of, but don't know that much about, and have never been able to get through a Hitman game because I'm terrible at it. But fascinated by the concept, and I like the look of it. So occasionally I would buy a Hitman thing. Here is All-Star Squadron 23. Why do I own this? No, really, I'm asking you, because I can't answer that. I have no idea why I have this. And there are issues in my collection that I always thought when I had the flea market booth, maybe I should have, kind of prune this thing down, and just stuff I didn't really care about, put in the flea market booth. But I have this silly thing where if I've owned a thing long enough, It can be kind of hard to break it out of the comic collection. I don't have that with every kind of thing I have, but I do have that with comics a little bit. Anyway, so All-Star Squadron. I don't know. Let's look that up and see if that's worth anything. All-Star Squadron 23. 1983 is the year. A year before I was born. Wow. I guess with some of this stuff, if it's old enough, it just suddenly has value now. This looks like it's $20 book, thereabouts, in the shape mine's in. Maybe it's closer to 10, honestly, $10 or $15, because I'm looking at this and it's not in like the best of shape, especially looking at the spine. It's creased a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely worth more than it was when it came out. Because when it came out, it was worth 60 cents. I definitely could get more than that. Well, if anybody cared. If anybody cared. Why do I have any Alpha Flight? I don't know. Sometimes it's like I'm just going for, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Representation. I'm going for representation. Alpha Flight's a thing you've heard of. So I gotta have, one of those. Okay, who wants to take bets that this is not worth more than like $3, $2? Let's look it up, shall we? Alpha Flight number 5. I don't know what volume that is. Is that first volume of Alpha Flight? I don't know. I'll tell you a funny story about Alpha Flight here in a second, though. Because I've got a story about everything. Number 5. 1983. No, this is not 83. This is this later? Is this 97? Yeah, this is 97. Okay. Well, ungraded is $2, and then it doesn't know once you get into the grading. So, yeah, a couple bucks, that book, probably. Anyway, I had a ridiculous amount of Alpha Flight I was trying to unload when I had a flea market booth, and I couldn't do it. So I put it, like, nobody cared. So I put it all in one box, and I taped the whole thing up, and I think I put like a $10 or $15 sticker on it. It was a long box, a full long box filled with Alpha Flight. Never sold it. Couldn't even unload it for like 10 or 15 bucks. Adam March, Cap can't play Hitman. I'm just too embarrassed to do it. I fought to do that, and as perfect as that is for the premise of that show, like I think I would just be sweating bullets. I don't think I could bring myself to do it. Robert, oh God, can the 2012 Avengers movie be considered retro or nostalgic now? I feel like when you get to a certain age, you start thinking of retro differently, and maybe like we should be able to have a different definition for it for our generation than the stuff before that, maybe. I don't know. Let's see what else people are saying real quick. Adam Marsh, you have Alpha Flight in honor of Austin. Yes, Alpha Flight is so popular in Canada. That's what Austin's going to keep telling you. I could sell you a bridge, but believe him. Believe him. Thomas Lowe, are you willing to pay for a $1,000 comic and you're going to read it, not just collect it? I'm not, once again, I'm not totally sure what he means by that. But if I paid $1,000 for a comic, and I've never spent that much on a single issue, by the way. I want to say the most I've ever spent on a single issue is $100. Have I ever spent more than that? I don't think I have. I've definitely spent, 40, 50, 60 bucks on single issues of things. Especially like Silver Age Marvel and that kind of stuff. I don't... Oh, you know what? There's an issue... Hold on. That I missed... that was on the back of one of these when I was going through that notebook of books that I want to show you guys. Was it on the back of New Mutants? No, where was it? Oh, there it is. Okay. I gotta tell you guys about this real quick. But what I was going to say is, if I was going to spend $1,000 on a book, first of all, I would probably want it CGC'd, and it would be for collecting, not for reading. And like I said, I read nearly everything in digital now, unless I have a really nice trade for it. And I actually could see myself starting to buy hardcovers, and again, I'd be really picky about what I got, but more often now for things that I know I want to read, more than once, that are like my favorite things that I want to go back to, that could be kind of nice to sit down and just open like a really cool, well-bound volume. Um, like I want it for Last Ronin. Like I have the first issue, which is a little bit relatively valuable because people couldn't get their hands on them, but I didn't buy the rest of it. But I've read that in digital. I would like to have that in a nice hardcover. There's stuff like that. Anyway, so on the back of this Daredevil 181, which turned out to be not anything like worth as much as I thought, I have a really nice copy. And I spent a little on this because I was so impressed with what it looked like. The very classic McFarlane cover, very iconic, Incredible Hulk 340. Yeah, man. This is one of my favorite covers, and it was a big deal to me when I found this at a flea market. There's a flea market outside of my wife's mom's house that has an unbelievably good comic booth that I frequent when I'm there, and I always spend money with them. I don't think I've gone to that booth and been able to spend less than a couple $100. They always have great stuff like this for pretty decent prices. What did I pay for this? I can't remember. I think it was 60 or 70. Let's see what it's actually worth though. So Incredible Hulk 340. And I think I might have reviewed that with Not Spawn Year as well. Oh, Power Rangers did a 340 homage in a variant cover. Have I seen this? I'm not sure if right away I would have even caught that was supposed to be an homage. I don't know. Like, I guess it kind of is. I mean, it is, but it's subtle enough. I don't know if I would have caught that. Anyway, I digress. It's kind of a cool cover, I guess. Okay. Mine. So a 4.0 is worth $100. Mine, I'm gonna guess, is at least a 7, if not an 8. So, again, not graded, but I still think I got a pretty good deal on it. I might have paid close to what it's worth, but I don't mind. No regrets. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. I need to display that somewhere. Somehow. All right, Jareth, I wish I could get into reading digital. Every time I try, I don't enjoy it. It took me a little while to get used to it, but I got to a point, and like, everybody's different. Like, some of it's situational. I don't know if I would have ever gone to it if I didn't have kids and if I didn't have to travel with books a lot. But it got to the point where it was really nice to be able to, first of all, to just know that you're not going to ruin your issues by leaving them someplace or having a kid rip one up or something like that. But it was also nice not to have to worry about lighting, where you can read a book on a tablet like anywhere you happen to be, even if it's pitch black. And like, that's a thing that I started really appreciating. Some of it also is, I have really bad eyes, and it's nice to be able to blow up panels larger. And so what I do is, I don't do panel and panel because I like to be able to see the layouts, but I do flip my tablet sideways so the pages are like 1.5 times size. And I've gotten really used to reading that way, and it's just easier on my eyes, just easier to see everything. So that's a lot of the reason that I do that. But I'm not knocking anybody that hasn't gone to that. And honestly, I always feel like it's blasphemous. I always feel a little bit self-conscious about it. Where, like, I was such a proponent for physical and supporting comic shops and stuff for so long. And I still love that stuff. And when I read stuff that I love, I still tend to buy it in some form eventually, but, or at least the issues that I've got to have the covers of. But I don't know, just for me and what I do, it's gotten to where it's much simpler. And also, again, my priorities are a little bit different with where what I spend my money with now. Okay, things are getting a little bit out of order here. Here's another Alpha Flight. Here's number 10 from that same series, I think. These covers are very cartoonish and not great. I don't know why I have that. There's probably one more right here. Let's see. Nope. Okay, this is an issue that escaped me when I sold my Spawn collection that I just didn't happen to get in with the rest of it. So this is a kind of a little comedy one-shot thing called Altered Image that's got Spawn and Witchblade and some other characters from like the Max from Image during that time period. I don't know, just for the heck of it, I'll look that up real quick. It's not even coming up right away. Okay, I'll move on then. Wow, where are we at here? Are we even halfway through this box? We are not. Okay, I got 20 minutes before I hit 2 hours, and we still have some folks watching. So if you guys want to stay up past 1 o'clock, and for some of you guys it's going to be 2 o'clock, by all means, hang out. I'll stay a little longer. These collection videos are fun because a bunch of stuff comes to me in like old stories and things that I wouldn't think to tell otherwise. Here is something that I loved when I was a kid and that I've talked about a lot on the channel and that I'm still happy that I have. So here is DC versus Marvel, #1. And of course, I have the whole miniseries here. I own most of Amalgam, and I'm actually going to be reviewing some more Amalgam with Austin next week. I've got to go back and figure out what one-shots I haven't reviewed before, and we're going to try to do most, if not all of those in one video by request. On the request on Wednesday. So that should be fun. But anyway, so this series was, I always talk about it in bulk as Amalgam, but this is, of course, before the characters were amalgamated, and the series was called DC versus Marvel. But what was curious about it is 1 and 4 are called DC versus Marvel, and then 2 and 3 are called Marvel versus DC, and you had to look them up that way, which made it really difficult to find in comic price guides when I was a kid, in Overstreet and Wizard and that kind of thing. It was just obnoxious to look that up. Let's see what it's worth now. I've not looked this up in a real long time. And these are about, and I never thought it would happen, but these are about to get traded. Finally. I don't know how Marvel and DC got together and are allowing that to happen, but we are in fact going to get I think that whole series is getting traded now. Okay, I like the way price charting does this. Check it out. The title is DC versus Marvel / Marvel versus DC, because they know that is obnoxious to look up. And like some books and sites would have it spelled out versus, VERSUS. Some of them would be VS. It's just absolutely irritating. Anyway, okay, now what is the difference here? Okay, so this is, I think, the book I have, the one I'm looking at. And these have not really moved in value at all. And 8.0 is only worth 25. And I mean, they made a lot of these, but I would think as old as this is, and like, is this just not very, very sought after? Like, I don't even know, but I would have thought maybe this would be worth a little bit more than that. But yeah, a 6.0, which is probably close to what I have. Again, I read this a lot when I was a kid, so there's some spine stuff. But yeah, I'm very nostalgic for these because this was some of the only stuff I bought new, like when it came out. I typically bought stuff months, years after it released that I would just find here and there at flea markets and stuff. But I actually went to a store in Little Rock. I remember the store that I went to get these as they came out because I thought that was such a big deal. But yeah, it looks like mine is probably worth $10, maybe. And these were oversized and printed on nicer paper than this stuff usually was. So in 1996, 1995, 95, 96, $4 was a pretty hefty price tag per issue. But yeah, my dad was cool, got me those right when they came out. But I want to see what this other one is. Okay. So mine has a regular barcode, which makes it, I don't know if it's newsstand or if it's comic shop or if that was the same thing. But there's apparently a version that's the DC Universe version where you see that DC Universe logo where the barcode is on mine, and that one is worth significantly more because they must not have made as many of those. I've never seen that. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, let me get into this box real quick. I'll just pull out the rest of these. Okay, so we'll run through the amalgam here. So here is number 2. And I've talked about all of this and shown these covers before. Here's number 3. Austin and I have a review of this from a couple of years ago on the channel, if you want to hear us talk in depth about this series. And here is number 4. Again, 4 is DC versus Marvel. 3 is Marvel versus DC. Okay. And what that means, literally, I believe, is 1 and 4 were actually made in-house at DC, and the other 2 were made in-house at Marvel. And different of them were made in different companies. And then once they call the whole thing amalgam, you probably can't tell which thing is made at which company, because it's not like they actually combined the houses. But anyway, let me see. I just want to see if number 2 is, the value is any different. It's around the same, so I'm sure the rest of them are that way as well. Robert, Late Night with Captain Logan would be a cool weekly show. Yeah, it would. Side-scrolling hero, love Late Night Cap, and it would be a cool throwback to comic book Late Night. I mean, we could even, I've even considered going back to a series called Comic Book Late Night where we just talk comics, even if all I was doing was retro stuff or, just stuff that's not happening right this very minute. Like, it would be a different format than what I used to do with that show. But, that's essentially, doing everything late at night. I mean, we're essentially doing a Late Night Captain Logan right now. I'm just not calling it that. But, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thomas Slow, I love your Amalgam Comics reviews back in the day. Yeah, thanks. Another thing that, for whatever reason, I fell off on and didn't finish, but I've come back and done a lot of them more recently, and now we're gonna finally finish it. Okay. So we'll blow through the amalgam. I'm going to assume that none of this is very valuable if those main books weren't. Those were the ones that I thought might be worth, $30-40, but they were not, in fact. Here is All Access, which again, Austin and I, you know what, I said Austin and I did DC versus Marvel. I can't remember how we did that. I know we did All Access, and then we did the other miniseries that post-dated that. Maybe we did those together, and then before that we did DC versus Marvel. Or I reviewed that with someone else, but I'm pretty sure Austin and I did both of those. But, yeah, this was the series with Access, who is kind of the keeper of the door between universes. And then this one is the cover with the X-Men versus the Avengers. See, I'll just show the covers and go through these. This was, and actually, as I'm doing this, I'm wondering if I can figure out which of these I've talked about, which of them I haven't. But I'm still going to have to look these up because there are probably some issues I don't have that I'm going to have to find a digital way to read so that I can review them next week. But here is Amazon #1, which was, of course, this is a nice cover, actually, which was, of course, a mix of Wonder Woman and Storm. Terry Austin drew that, and I didn't remember that John Byrne wrote that. again, I'm gonna have to go back and look this up. I can't remember if I reviewed this one or not. And what helps me figure that out is I reviewed most of the 96s, but not all of the 97s. But even a few of those I got to finally. Here is Assassins. And then we have Bat Thing, which was Man Bat and Bat Thing mixed together. I hope I haven't reviewed that yet, because it would be great to do that with Austin. She's such it's getting late. Man Thing guy. I was sitting here like, it's not Man Bat. I can't think of anything. Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know I talked about this one. They were somewhat inconsistent with these things, where this is weird. This wasn't even Bruce Wayne mixed with anybody. He's just an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay. Here's Bullets and Bracelets, where you've got Diana and Prince and Frank Castle. So again, not really amalgamated with anybody. Challengers of the Fantastic, mixing the Fantastic Four with Challengers of the Unknown. I think I talked about that one. I can't remember. Dark Claw. Both of the Dark Claw books I've done by this point, I do believe. So you had Legends of Dark Claw, and then you have Dark Claw Adventures, which was done in the style of Batman in the Animated Series. Really faithfully, I might add. I talked about this one on Not Spawn Year. Here is Doctor Strange Fate, who, spoiler alert, you find out at the end is actually Professor X, which was a pretty cool reveal. Here is Generation Hex. I don't think I've talked about that one yet. I'm not sure. Here is Iron Lantern. Yeah, that was a great mix. That was a great amalgam. Like, let's mix Iron Man and Green Lantern. Okay. Iron Lantern. Sure. Robert, Cap, if you were the host of a late night talk show, what would be your regular gimmicks and segments? I don't know. I'd have to give that some thought. I would probably have my own like music section where like I've got the big band, but I always do some kind of karaoke thing. Like I always sing with them. That would be a thing I would do. And then if it was about comics, I would do a segment where I go back and find like the funniest letters pages in old comics that I could find. That would be a segment. It'd be sort of like Jay Leno's headlines. Here is JLX in their own book at last. Yeah, by popular demand. Looks like you've got a Quicksilver character at the bottom there, but I don't know who he's mixed with. There's a list of all the amalgamated characters that we'll probably have to pull up when we reviewed some of this stuff. But yeah, there's that. Again, I can't remember if I've talked about that. I'm going to have to look all that up. It's going to take me a little while. Wow, there's more of these than I remembered. JLX Unleashed. So there's a couple of these. I probably reviewed one, and the other one I haven't yet. There's Lobo the Duck. That one I might revisit, even if I've talked about it before, which I think I have, just so that we can have Austin talk about it. Magneto and the Magnet Men. No, the Magnetic Men. The Magnetic Men, which looks kind of like, just looking at the art of the cover, like a Ecstatics or something. Speed Demon, which I guess was a cross with Ghost Rider and the Flash. The Magnetic Men featuring Magneto. Yeah, they did 2 of these. Weird. And then there were 2 Spider Boys. Here is just Spider Boy. It's a cross of Superboy and Spider-Man, which really dates it. Really tells you the time this came out in, when Connor Kent was real popular. Is that Connor Kent? Or is that a different Superboy? But the clone. I think that's Connor Kent. Spider-Boy Team Up. Who's he teaming up with? Oh, Legion 2099. I forgot about that. That's hilarious. And then Super Soldier. There were 2 of these with Captain America and Superman. Robert, you should give Austin a current events news segment. Well, we've got a lot of things we're doing already. I don't know if I did the late night thing, I'd probably do it all by myself. But I guess you're just saying theoretically if I had like a real late night talk show. Super Soldier Man of War. That's a cool cover, which harkens back to, well, I was going to say, Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, but this is Sergeant Rock and his Howling Commandos. So yeah, that is absolutely what we're doing. I like Jimmy Olsen there in the background. That's pretty cool. And then we've got Thorian of the New Gods. Yeah, Thor and Orion. Thorian. Maybe we're trying too hard with that one. Okay, there is... How many more of these? One. I missed one Amalgam, folks. And it's the Exciting X Patrol. Yeah, more of these than I remembered. And I don't think I even own them all. I think there's still even a few, at least a couple, three besides that. 5 minutes till we're at 2 hours. So I'll do one or two more here. Here is... I think... I mean, they might have to be 2 hour streams, or at least hour and a half streams. I think I can do a full box most of the time. It's just I went through some issues from that notebook at the beginning that I wanted to talk about a little bit longer because they were kind of bigger deal issues, a lot of them. Here is Amazing Adventures featuring the original X-Men. So these were, I think, first run Stan Lee stories reprinted in the 70s, probably. So Amazing Adventures number 8. And even though these were reprinted stories, some of these I think still book a little bit. Let's find out. Amazing Adventures. Adventures number... It was 8, right? Yes. 1971. Yeah, what did I tell you? $40 fine, $50 very fine. This might not be much better than a 4 or a 5. Well, it doesn't look too bad, but I would need to pop it open and see if it's got a little bit of water damage on the front. I can't tell. I think it might actually. But yeah, so that's still probably a $15, $20 book. At least. Yeah, it's weird some of the things that have gone up that weren't worth anything when I got them. Okay, I said one or two things. What do I have here? I'll blow through these really briefly because very few of you guys are going to care. This was a find a long time ago at a half-price books when I was really into Buffy and Angel. And I bought the IDW books that they had early on when IDW wasn't anything like as well known. And these are hard to look up because they don't have numbers on the front. And they're all of different miniseries. I hated it when companies would do this. You don't see this much anymore. But back then, this was, early mid-2000s, you would get a book like this that would just say Angel. And on the bottom, it would have a number. And you'd go, oh, it's Angel number 1. But it wasn't. It was actually a miniseries that had a different name. But you had to crack it open before you could see the name. So one of these is called, Old Wounds, and I forget what all the rest of it is. But a nightmare to look up. And I'm not going to look these up right now and find out the prices. I'm sure that they're not, worth much more than the initial covers. These were already, in 05, $4 books. Which is kind of crazy, actually. But anyway, I'll just show the covers real quick. I don't think it's going to matter all that much to most of you guys what these are actually called. But they were really hard to file even in the box because you had to open them all to see if you were putting them with the right miniseries. It's just really irritating. This is kind of a cool sort of sketchy cover. And then you get to Boom Studios, Angel number 0. This was when they did the full-on reboot that was not great and did not last a real long time. Angel and Faith, I just loved. And I bought very little of... When Buffy Season 8 was happening, I didn't get any of that. I had a friend that was buying those in trade, and I read some of those. Once they got to Season 9, I did start buying Angel and Faith, and I was very impressed with that book. And so, I don't know how many of these I have. Well, I guess I only have 3 issues. I know I was reading these when they were coming out, and I was working at a comic shop. But apparently I didn't buy very many. But I read, I want to say, most of this series. That books are falling over. over here. And then these are in kind of a weird order, the way I've got these here, because then it goes back to the IDW series. And okay, so then they finally started actually putting the names of the miniseries on the covers. Great. There's Masks, and then old Friends. I don't know where I got Old Wounds from, but here's Old Friends. And I want to say this was, yeah, because it was Dark Horse, right, that published The Fall. And then I don't even think that's canon when you get into the, was that Dark Horse? I think it's been too long. I don't think that's even canon when you get into the Buffy season 8 and beyond stuff. But you had this miniseries which went beyond season 5, because there's Illyria on the cover, and then you've got Gunn holding an eye because he gets it shot and he loses an eye, and he's got an eye patch in this. When you get to The Fall, he actually becomes a vampire. So none of this counts with anything, but here it is. Nevertheless, I like The Fall a lot. I have some of that in hardcover. And then there is, wow, it's been so long since I've seen Angel, I can't even remember the man's name right now. I was thinking Doyle. This is Doyle. This is like a one-shot with Doyle, who was a character that got written out in the first season because the actor wasn't working out. And then unfortunately, he committed suicide later. I like that actor a lot. He was having some issues with alcoholism and things. It was a real sad story. Lorne is his name. God, it was my favorite character in that series, and I couldn't even think of it there for a minute. But anyway, yeah. So I have a weird little Angel collection, mostly from IDW stuff. Let's see what other folks are saying real quick before I finish up. Jareth Gearhart, my dad had a lot of those. I'm trying to file them, which is really hard. Oh, the Angel books, especially because a lot of them are the photo covers. Yeah, that's what I've got, is a lot of the photo covers. Wow. Crazy to find somebody during the live stream that has even seen those. Well, folks, I didn't get through the whole box, but I'm going to go ahead and call it quits tonight. I got to get to bed, but thanks a lot for hanging out with me so late if you're watching live. It's 1:30 here in the Central Time Zone, and we still have some folks well into the evening, or well into the night, so you guys are great. Really appreciate you. Glad this went as well as it did. You guys are really fun. Thanks for interacting with me. And we've got a long slog. We've got a bunch of, I don't want to say slog, it'll be fun, but we're going to go through all this stuff. I was really, really hoping it wouldn't be boring. And 52, just had to show you all the covers. There wasn't really a whole lot to say. And so there will be some series like that. But we'll look stuff up. We'll see if any of this is valuable. That's kind of fun to do, and just see where prices are these days. And we'll find some neat covers, and I'll think of cool stories and stuff I haven't thought about in a long time. And we'll just go real laid back and informal and take our time, and it'll take the time it takes. And occasionally I'll shift to another collection, show you some of my other cool stuff. But we're going to go through every geeky thing I own here on Cap's Collections. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and I'm going to get going, but I will see you again with more streams this week. Jason and I tomorrow night, around 9:30, 10 o'clock Central, are going to come on and review Twisters, which we just saw today. And then lots more stuff this week on Geekvolution. And once again, you have a little bit of time if you want it to fill out your top 50 DC and top 50 Marvel character lists. Go to the community tab or the short I posted for details about that. And we're going to extend it for just a few days because we're still getting some of those rolling in. And because I don't have time to make a stream for it yet anyway, I'm going to do that at the beginning of next week. So once again, thanks for watching. And Thomas Lowe says, more of these, please. Well, it's going to happen. We're going to do some more of these. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll see you, folks. Bye, everybody.